Hey everyone, it's Collin here at etrailer. Today we're going to take a look at this really cool setup from Yakima. This is their double hull fly rod rooftop carrier. Now this is a really cool design from Yakima. It's a rooftop carrier, so it's going to mount to your roof rack, and it provides a really good solution for getting those longer fly rods loaded up without having to break them down or without having to store them inside your vehicle. Now right here is probably a good example of how most people carry their fly rods when they don't have any type of carrier on their roof. And personally, this is how I would do it if I'm going about 5 to 10 minutes down the road and I only got the one fly rod with me. But if you're taking a longer trip, a family vacation, or you're going to a river trip with your buddies, then this could get kind of annoying having these longer fly rods just sticking all the way through the middle, sitting up on your dash. If all of a sudden you take a sharp turn or slam on the brakes or accelerate, they can move around very suddenly. And if I'm ever a passenger in a vehicle like this is something that could get pretty annoying, just having it in the middle of everyone. And if you have little ones sitting in their booster seats, then you don't want them messing with your fly rods and possibly hurting themselves. And this is where the double hull is going to come in handy, because we don't have to cram our fly rods into our vehicle and we don't have to break them down either. We're going to be able to get up to 4 fly rods, being 10 feet long each, inside our carrier. So not only are we going to be safe inside our vehicle, but our fly rods are also going to be safe while they're stored in here. You can see this nice soft felt padding on the wall right here and on the ground. That's going to really help make sure it protects your reels when they're in transport. It just can sit right there. Our top 2 slots in our carrier are going to be good for most 12 weight reels, so those bigger reels for those bigger fish you want to catch. You want to make sure you get those in the top 2 slots. You also want to make sure that the handle that comes behind our reel is no more than 7 7/8 of an inch. With the bottom 2 compartments, these are going to be good for up to 10 weight reels. So make sure you get your bigger ones up here first. And then also it's going to be a little bit smaller on the clearance with the back of the handles. That's going to be up to 5 5/16 long. Now, one thing about this carrier that's going to set it apart from a lot of other ones on the market is that rather than having our reels hanging down like so, when you look at a lot of other carriers, with our double hull, it's going to basically just cradle it in its own compartment. It's got a nice soft platform to sit on. This is going to protect it a lot better. When it's hanging down like that, you just never know what could happen. It could bump up against the side or anything like that. And with the reel inside there, it's going to prevent the pole from going farther down the tube. You can see I'm just lightly pushing on it. It's not going anywhere. And then with our back lid, we're going to have very nice, soft, thick foam right here that's going to bump up against our reels and prevent them from coming back at all. So it's really taking the shifting of our rods down to a minimum. On top of that, we have the Yakima same key system for our locks. So we can just lock it up when we're traveling or leaving it unattended. That way no one can access the inside of our carrier. Now, one thing you do want to keep in mind with this fly rod carrier is that when it's mounted to the rooftop of your SUVs like this, depending on what type of SUV you have, you may lose access to the rear of your vehicle. Now, with our current application, you can see our spoiler is pretty big right now, and you can see we've gone ahead and scooted the double hull as far forward as we can, but we're still not going to be able to have access to the trunk. Like I said, you may have a different type of SUV where you can scoot it far enough forward to gain rear hatch access. One situation where I know most of the time it's going to work is when you have a truck with a camper shell on it, and if you put a roof rack on that camper shell, then this is going to work very well with that application. When placing this on your roof, keep in mind, again, you do need a minimum crossbar spread of 27 inches, and you're going to need a bracket on both sides of this center bracket right here. You don't want 2 on this side or 2 on this side. It's going to evenly space out the weight as long as you have 1 on this side, 1 on this side. Now, there is 2 different configurations for our double hull carrier. Right now we have it in the 11-foot configuration. Like I said, you can get 4 fully strung rods up to 10 feet long inside the carrier. But if you got some shorter rods that you want to carry and you don't want this big long carrier on top of your vehicle, you can shrink it down to a 6-foot carrier to carry those smaller rods. Now, an advantage to that is it's going to be smaller on your roof. Now all we got to do to get it down to that 6-foot length is remove these bolts right here. You can use a 10mm socket, or they give you a tool provided, as well as this Allen tool. So we'll go ahead and remove all those and then take the spacers out. Now we can just pull it apart, get the spacers out of there, and you can set these to the side. Now this is the back of our carrier where the end cap is, where we would load it. What we're going to do is go to the front, get the end cap off with the same tools, and then put it on the front right here. And now we'll tighten everything back down. And with it mounted back on your roof, you can see that it is much smaller. So if you don't have any fly rods over 6 feet tall, then this is going to be a configuration that benefits you the best. As you can see, we have it mounted to the side, and that's because due to our spoiler, we weren't able to reach over top and gain access. It still is a little difficult, but I can still reach that button and open up my carrier. And also, you can see that I now have full access to my trunk, so I can get whatever cargo or other fishing gear I might need for my trip. Now it's a very simple and tool-free installation. It's going to use 2 clamps on both crossbars that come up and under. You can see we have our hand knobs right here that are tightened down onto our bolts. What's nice is that we also have a lock on the top. So we have this plate sitting right here, and it's preventing us from loosening or tightening our hand knobs. We have a lock on top with this knob is going to be key to like with the lock on your lid, and that's just going to prevent anyone from just removing the carrier altogether. You can see the clamps underneath our crossbars. We're using this on a factory roof rack right now, but it's also going to work with arrow bars, elliptical bars, round bars, and square bars. So it's got a wide variety of applications this is going to be useful for. Now when mounting this to your roof rack, you do need a minimum crossbar spread of 27 inches. And one thing I do want to point out, and this is kind of due to both being a smaller crossbar spread and a factory roof rack, which is not the most stable one, you can see we have a little bit of flex in our carrier right now. It kind of likes to go up and down, and when you're traveling, you can see as I drive up this hill that it's kind of shaking a little bit. Now, while it's due to both the roof rack system and our crossbar spread, I would highly advise always trying to make sure you get as wide of a crossbar spread as possible. Now, what that's going to do is get most of the weight between your crossbars for more support, rather than having a lot of weight on the front of the front crossbar and a lot of weight behind the back crossbar. Now the whole thing is going to have a durable aluminum construction. It's going to help really make sure it protects all of your fly rods for travel, and it's also going to hold up well to rust and corrosion. Another thing to keep in mind when mounting this to your roof rack, if you got a taller vehicle like a big SUV or even a truck, you are going to be adding about 9 inches to the top of your roof rack. So for any low clearance situations like pulling into your garage, it is something you want to keep in mind. Now while we have it clamped onto our crossbars right now, there is another option to mount it. If you have a roof rack that has a T-slot and you want to mount it to that slot, you can do so with the adapter kit, which is sold separately here at eTrailer. Gives you that option to get it into your T-slot. Now as you can see, this is a very narrow carrier. It only measures up to 14 inches wide. That's going to be plenty of space to be able to scoot it over and get other roof rack accessories loaded, like if you want to get a cargo box up here and get some extra gear or some luggage stored up there as well. And like I said, in this configuration, it is going to be 11 feet long. So if you plan on using the longer version, I'd highly advise using it on a bigger SUV like this or even a truck. Now I've worked with this double haul all day. Some things I really like about it are that it has individual tubes for each fly reel. And I just like that I can get them up here. It solves my problem of not storing them in my vehicle, being in the way of my passengers, whether it's my buddies or my kids. And it's also going to provide security for my fly rods, as well as protect them from the elements and any impacts. Well, I'd appreciate you all for watching, and I hope this information helped you guys out. But that's going to do it for our look at Yakima's DoubleHaul Fly Rod Rooftop Carrier.